Hello, hello. Looks like we're live on one. Waiting for the other one to fully connect. There we go. Looks like we're good. Hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is having a fantastic Thursday. Go ahead and say hello in the chat where you're from, and we will get started in just a minute. I want to double check my sound to make sure that everything is good. I think we're Yep, doing good. We got good stuff there. And let me get one more. Yep. We are live and good to go. May the tech gods be ever in our favor today and stay on for the whole thing. I want to thank you so much for joining me for the Elevate Your Sewing Pattern Making Summit. And I'm super excited to be talking today about From Sewist to Pattern Maker. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get this party started. Going to share my screen so we can look at these slides as we go through everything. Awesome. Oh, we got some people from all over, from Texas, from Florida, from Sweden. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Awesome. So you're here because sewing isn't only a hobby for you. It's something that you genuinely care about. You enjoy creating garments, choosing fabrics, and bringing ideas to life with your hands. But at some point in almost every sewist journey, something interesting happens. You start wondering how patterns themselves work, why that seam is placed there, why the fit changes when you alter something, how garments move from an idea all the way to that final pattern. And once that curiosity shows up, it is really hard to ignore it because sewing patterns stop feeling like instructions because you want to just stop following those instructions and maybe start breaking some rules because or you start recognizing that there is another way to create all of the amazing looks that you want. And that moment is the beginning of pattern making. Today, we're going to talk about the 5 shifts that happen when a sewist begins thinking more like a pattern maker. I want to start off with a simple question. If you could design any garment for yourself, what would it look like? Not modifying an existing garment, not adjusting something that already like almost works, but actually designing a garment that you wish existed. Maybe it is a dress that fits you exactly the way you want. Maybe it is a jacket with proportions and pockets that you've always wanted. Or maybe it's a skirt that moves in a very specific way while you are walking. Or maybe it's something that you've sketched in your head a million times, but never quite knew how to turn it into a pattern. So I want you to just take a moment, picture that garment in your head. So when you start imagining garments like this, before the pattern ever exists, is the space where pattern making begins. So think about the garment you're imagining right now, that dress, skirt, jacket, that design that came to mind. Every garment you've ever worn, every garment you've ever sewn, seen, every garment hanging in your closet began in that same way. Someone understood how to turn an idea that they had into a pattern. Not just how to sew it, but how to shape that fabric, how to place those seams, how to put the pieces together so that they work together on the body in the way that you dream. And that understanding is what transforms an idea into a design and into a garment that works. And today, the journey we're going to explore is just that. I also wanted to give you a couple of resources that will help you start experimenting after the after this masterclass with your pattern making. The first is a digital half scale sloper pattern. The half scale is a fantastic way to practice pattern drafting because you can explore ideas quickly without cutting into lots of fabric, and it lets you test shapes, proportions, pattern changes in a really low pressure way. And you've definitely seen a few of some really amazing examples this past week at the summit. The second is a Canva sewing instruction template. Some people eventually decide they'd like to share the patterns with others, and this gives you a simple starting layout for creating clear sewing instructions. Even if you're only designing for yourself right now, it can be a really great way to organize your pattern notes, some construction ideas as you are building your pattern. So I will be sharing the link for both of these at the end. Before we dive in, I do want to set the stage for what we're going to be exploring today together. By the end of our time together today, you're going to have a much clearer understanding of how patterns actually shape the garments. We'll talk about why fit issues happen and why they're not random problems, but signals that tell us something about the pattern. Then we're going to talk about you'll start to see the structure behind the garment design and the decisions that determine how fabric moves around the body. And most importantly, we're going to walk through those 5 shifts that move somebody from simply following patterns to thinking like a pattern maker. This isn't about becoming perfect overnight. It's about seeing patterns differently. Before we dive in, let's just take a quick moment to set ourselves up for success during this masterclass. I know life can be very busy and it's easy to try to do some multitasking while watching something like this. But if you can, give yourself the gift of being fully present for the next little bit of time. If possible, find a quiet space, silence your phone, maybe even close all those other tabs that we all have open all the time that might pull your attention away. This time is for you. It is a chance to explore something that genuinely interests you, and you want to start seeing patterns in a whole new way. Before we go any further, I just want to take a quick moment to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Christina. I help sewing enthusiasts learn how to move beyond simply following patterns and start understanding how patterns really work. I've been sewing for many, many years, and like many sewists, I started exactly where most people are, by buying patterns, following the instructions, and hoping the fit would work out. But over time, I became more and more curious about how garments were created and designed, and then how those designed patterns were then created. And that curiosity led me into deep diving into pattern making and eventually into digital tools that I fell in love with how easy they were to use, and eventually into teaching others how they can also move into the digital space to pattern faster on the computer. All right. A minute ago, you pictured a garment you'd love to design. And I want you to know that that garment is absolutely possible for you to make. But before we jump into the 5 shifts, I want to invite you to make just a tiny little commitment with me. If you're ready to learn how pattern making can become clearer, more structured, and honestly, a lot more fun, take a moment and give yourself a little nod, a little confirmation, or even say out loud, yes, I can do this. Because today isn't about watching, it's about stepping into a deeper understanding of the garments you want to create. And that understanding can click even when the small changes start to happen. So here's the deal. Over the years, I have worked with many sewists who are curious about pattern making, and I've noticed something interesting. Most people fall into 2 places. Neither one is right or wrong, they're just different starting points. Though some sewists are incredibly comfortable with following patterns and constructing garments, but they've never quite been shown how patterns actually work. And others have tons of creative ideas for garments they love to design. But pattern making still feels intimidating. So those ideas stay stuck in their sketchbook or in their imagination. If you're here today, there's a very good chance that you see yourself in one of those two places. So, which one sounds more like where you're at? Are you in the understanding gap or the design barrier? Drop in the chat which one feels most like you. Notice which side you kind of more immediately recognize yourself with, because almost everyone who begins exploring pattern making kind of starts in one of these two places. And I would love to know where you're starting. So the interesting thing is both of these camps come from the same place. Most sewists were simply never taught how patterns actually work. We were taught how to sew them, how to follow the step-by-step instructions, but not how they're designed. I see some coming in now. We have some of both in both camps. That's awesome. So the way most sewists begin exploring pattern making usually looks something like this. First, we're going to follow those step-by-step instructions and try to copy the techniques that we learn from our teachers and that we see in the tutorials. Then, when the fit isn't quite right, we try to adjust things maybe in different ways, often by guessing and just experimenting at the beginning. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And after a while, it can start to feel like you're putting in a whole lot of effort, but still not fully understanding what's happening inside of the pattern. And a lot of people try to fill the gap by watching tutorials, and those tutorials can be incredibly helpful. They can teach you very specific techniques or show you how somebody solved a very specific problem. However, what often happens is that you learn lots and lots of little tiny pieces or how to solve very specific problems without ever being shown the bigger structure behind the pattern or the problems that you're trying to solve. If you stay curious long enough, you start asking questions, not just how do I sew this, but why is it designed this way? You start looking at the garment and wondering, why is the dart there? What does the seam mean here? And what does the fit change when I move pieces around or I move darts around or I change my style lines? And the moment those questions start showing up, something really important has already begun. This is the moment you begin questioning patterns instead of just following them. You've already started thinking differently. You're no longer just sewing garments. You are starting to look at the structure behind them, and that's the moment that the shift can happen. You've already taken your first steps towards becoming a pattern maker. You might not have called yourself that yet, but that curiosity is exactly where pattern making begins. And the beautiful thing is, this moment of curiosity isn't necessarily unique to you. Almost every pattern I know that I've worked with or that I've co-designed with starts in this very similar place. They started as sewists who really were simply curious about how patterns worked. These are a few of the sewists I have had the privilege of working with. And what's interesting is that they all started in very similar places to what we have been talking about. Some of them were very comfortable with sewing, but didn't understand the structure of patterns yet. And others had amazingly creative ideas that they wanted to design, but felt overwhelmed with where to begin. What changed for them wasn't talent. It was starting to understand how patterns work and following a system to get where they wanted to go. So now that you've seen what that shift is possible and that other sewists have made that transition from simply following patterns to understanding them, the next question is, how does that happen? What changes between being a sewist and of being a sewist who follows patterns and somebody who understands patterns and creates them? Over time, I started noticing that there are a few key shifts that tend to happen. So let's go ahead and start walking through those 5 shifts now that will take us from sewist to pattern maker. So, have you ever looked at a garment or seen a sewing pattern and wondered, how did they actually make this? What pattern pieces were involved? That question right there is the moment you're going to start your pattern making journey. I've worked with sewists that are curious about pattern making and notice something interesting. People who begin to understand patterns don't learn random techniques. They go through a series of shifts in how they think about garments, patterns, and fit. And when those shifts start to happen, pattern making becomes a lot more easy or it becomes easier and makes a lot more sense. So what I'd like to do now, oh, we're walking through the 5 shifts. The first shift was when we move from following patterns to reading garments. Most of us begin by following that step-by-step process. We open the instructions, we sew each seam in the order that they tell us, and focus on constructing the garment correctly. And half the time get very confused by the instructions they give us in those step-by-step following instruction guides. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's how most of us learned how to sew. But pattern makers start looking at garments differently. They start looking at patterns differently as well. Instead of just asking, how do I sew this? They start asking questions like, why is the dart there? Why is that design line there? What shape is creating this body? Can I move that and still maintain the garment? Can I add to this to change it around? In other words, they begin reading garments, understanding how patterns create the shape and design, and even really start wanting to tweak it and change it for their own success. So let's go ahead and start with the old way most of us learned, those step-by-step sewing instructions. We cut the pieces, made the seams, instructions that they told us, and assembling. And honestly, that approach works really well when you're wanting to learn how to sew. And it helps you build that confidence in construction. But the limitation is that you're focused on what to do next rather than why the pattern is designed that way. So, the new way pattern makers start looking at garments, instead of following instructions, they begin to read the garments or they start to begin to read the images. And when you start reading garments and images, you begin to notice things. Every seam exists for a reason. It might control shape. It might add some structure. It might be because there is a design line there or a style line. It might change how it is fit onto the garment. Darts love to distribute shape. They are not just little triangles on the pattern, they actually help fabric so that its shape and can curve and fit around the body. The direction of fabric determines how the garment hangs and stretches and moves. If you change the grain line of different things, fabrics are going to react differently. And once you start seeing these things, garments stop feeling so mysterious and patterns stop feeling so mysterious. And you can start to begin to see that logic behind them. So, what does this look like in practice? When you start reading a garment, you don't need to know everything at once. You don't even have to memorize everything. You just have to kind of start with a few simple questions and then keep working your way down the list. First, what is the overall shape? Where is it fitted? Where is it not fitted? Where does it have volume? Then we're going to look at the seam lines. What pieces are this made from? What pieces would this be made from? Is this a skirt? Is this a pant? Short sleeve, long sleeve, or no sleeves? And then next we're going to go into the shaping. Where is that coming from? Is it coming from gathering? Is it coming from darts? Is it coming from multiple panels? Maybe it's coming from pleats. And then finally, we're going to go into how the fabric is behaving. And that is where grain comes in, because grain can change a lot about how that fabric is going to behave and even possibly stretch around the body. So this is how you start breaking down a garment instead of guessing it. This is the shift, something I've seen happen with some of my students. One of them is Anna, and when Anna first started learning pattern making, she could sew beautifully. But like many sewists, she hadn't really been taught how to analyze a garment yet. So when she looked at a design, it still felt a little mysterious on how to get the pattern pieces to make that design. But as she practiced looking at the seams, looking at the darts, looking at the fullness, and how the pattern pieces would shape that garment, something started to click. She told me later that her design analysis skills had improved dramatically. She could look at garments and actually understand how they were constructed and what pattern pieces she would need to create them. And once you can read that garment, patterns stop feeling like puzzles and start feeling like something you can easily solve. The second shift, it happens when we move from guessing to using a system. A lot of sewists try to learn pattern making one adjustment at a time. A dart change here, a seam change there. And while those techniques are super, super helpful, they can feel a little disconnected. And that leads to an old way many people experience pattern adjustments. The old way is that adjustments can feel much more like guessing than knowing what to do. You move a dart, you shift a seam, you redraw a line, and then you sew another sample to just see what happens. Sometimes it works out great and everything you did works out beautifully. But then there's times you're like, what happened? I changed everything and just something didn't work. And that's because there wasn't a system guiding that change. And it can feel slow and frustrating. But pattern makers approach this differently. Instead of guessing where to move a line, they start with a structure. Things like slopers, measurement logic, pattern relationships, looking at the fitting lines, and really deducing and problem solving. Those systems help you understand the pattern pieces and how they interact with one another. So when you make a change, you're not hoping that it works. You're making a decision based on a structure from the pattern and from your experience. And that turns pattern making itself from trial and error to something much more predictable. So let me tell you about Kanisha. When she joined, she was incredibly hard on herself. She had dabbled in digital tools years prior and felt completely overwhelmed by the interfaces and the software. Once she followed a system to create her own complete sloper set, which fit her beautifully. Then everything changed. She suddenly had the confidence to move freely within the tools. She was drafting new designs from scratch, from her sloper from scratch, and making those adjustments once she, the things that she thought were once out of reach were back in reach. And she created that digital foundation, and it gave her a great fit. It made her realize that she didn't need to outsource her ideas anymore. She had a roadmap to create her own designs and even potentially sell them down the road. The third shift happens when we move from blaming fit to diagnosing fit. Almost every sewist has that moment where a garment doesn't fit the way we expected it to. Maybe the bust feels really tight, there are wrinkles across the back, maybe the waistline is pulling and the shoulder is sitting a little strangely, a little funky. And then the common reaction to think is, my body must be the problem. But pattern makers learn to see those issues differently. So the old way would be the fit problems feel very personal. The garment doesn't fit. It's too easy to think that something is wrong with your body or the pattern itself. But most fit issues are simply signals. Pattern makers learn to read those signals. They're the drag lines, the wrinkles, the pulling, the are not really random things. They tell you exactly where the pattern needs to be adjusted and how much the pattern needs to be adjusted by. Once you diagnose those fit, then the fitting stops feeling frustrating and feels more like problem solving. You're seeing the issues and they're helping you point to the problems where you need to solve them. And I want you to remember those problems, those wrinkles, everything like that, the mistake, they are not mistakes. They are clues. Clues to get a better fitting garment. And once you diagnose those fit instead of blaming it, something else will begin to change. The way you practice pattern making and the way you practice fitting and then changing that fitting into your pattern. So when you start thinking like a pattern maker, the fit problems will stop feeling frustrating and start feeling useful because every line you see is telling you something. The drag lines mean tension. The fabric is being pulled somewhere. It doesn't quite have enough room. Wrinkles or fold often mean excess. There's more fabric than the body needs in that area. And when a garment is twisting and shifting, that's usually when a balance issue in the pattern or in the grain line. So instead of guessing, you're going to be reading those garments and seeing what they're telling you to make accurate changes. This is something I hear over and over again from students. When you start understanding how patterns work, you can read the garments, use the systems, diagnose the fit. Everything starts to move faster. And you're not going to second guess every decision anymore. You're not going to get stuck wondering if an adjustment will work. Instead, you start trusting what you're seeing in the pattern. And that confidence changes the whole experience of sewing and pattern making. The fourth shift is happens when we move from consuming tutorials to practicing with intention. This is a place where many passionate sewists spend a lot of time. There are so many amazing tutorials, amazing videos, blog posts, and so many amazing tips available. But it's very easy to get into that cycle of learning pattern making without actually building the skills. You watch a video, you save that video for later because you want to test it out. You're learning this new interesting technique, and you're like, oh, I want to try that on my next thing. And you save it, and then you move on, never actually practicing, testing it out, or seeing how you could use it. So that is the old way of just watching tutorials, saving those videos, collecting tips and techniques, and you will definitely learn tons and tons of interesting things and definitely get so many amazing tips from so many amazing people. But it can still feel really difficult to then connect all those different tutorials, all those different techniques into the reality of pattern making and the skills it takes. Because skill doesn't come from watching videos, it comes from practicing and practicing with intention. So, the new way, instead of trying to learn everything at once and watching all those videos, pattern makers love to start and work and focus on small experiments at first. They'll sometimes really do a deep dive into drafting a sleeve, or maybe how to adjust darts around bodices, testing how fullness can change silhouettes. Each project becomes a new way to explore how patterns behave and what happens when you do these tiny little experiments. And over time, all those small experiments will build into some amazing skills that you can use over and over and over again. Pattern making isn't something you master by watching. It is something that you are going to master by doing and practicing. And I love this insight from Anna because one of the biggest things that holds people back in pattern making is the feeling that everything has to be perfect before you begin. But pattern making doesn't work like that. It's a process of testing and adjusting and learning from what you see. And once students give themselves permission to experiment, to fail, then everything starts to move forward faster. She would always say is just get it done and test it out. And when you combine all of these shifts, reading the garment, diagnosing the fit, using the different systems, and definitely practicing intentionally, something deeper begins to happen. You will stop feel like somebody who only follows patterns. The fifth shift is the most meaningful one, and it is the shift from seeing yourself as somebody who simply is following sewing patterns to seeing yourself as a pattern maker. And I want you to pause here for a moment because the idea can feel a little bit uh, bigger than it sounds. Many sewists don't realize that the moment they start questioning patterns, asking, why is the dart here? Why is the seam placed here? Can I move the seam? Can I move the dart? Why does the fit behave the way it does? Then you've already started stepping into your own identity of being a pattern maker. And I want to encourage you to know you are not going to be leaving sewing behind to become a pattern maker. You will need to be building on it. Many people stay in the old way of thinking. The old way of pattern making is something reserved for the experts only. It's something that is super, super technical, where you have to be super great at math. It can be super complicated, like something you need years and years of training for before you're even allowed to attempt it. So many sewists stay in that role of pattern follower even when they have incredible ideas that they really want to share with the world, but they're not 100% sure how to get there. But the truth is, in the new way, pattern makers start exactly where sewists are. They begin understanding garments. They start testing their ideas out. They start refining patterns over time, and they build those skills step by step. Some patterns makers design only for themselves. They create garments that fit beautifully and they reflect their personal style, while others eventually will decide to share their patterns with the world. Both paths begin in the same way. And I want to pause here for something that I believe deeply. Designing for your garments or designing garments for yourself is not the smaller version of pattern making. In many ways, it can be more meaningful of pattern making to design for yourself. When you design for yourself, you are solving real problems that you can see for yourself. You are creating a garment that fits your body, fits your style, fits your life, and you feel confident and happy to wear. That process builds an incredible skill and it also builds understanding. So, if your dream is to create beautiful, well-fitting garments for yourself, that is pattern making. Sometimes people feel like pattern making is only counts if you want to eventually sell your patterns. But that is not what makes somebody a pattern maker. Pattern making is all about understanding how garments are built, and it's about that ownership process. When you can look at a garment, understand how you want it to come together, how you want to create that pattern, and then you're going to create that pattern with intention. That's pattern making. Selling patterns is just simply one direction that understanding can take you. And if one day you decide to share your patterns, you'll already have that understanding on how patterns behave, and you'll already have those existing ideas that you have tested out. You've adjusted the fit, you've refined your designs. So instead of trying to figure everything else out while you're trying to learn how to sell those patterns, you will have simply started by sharing the skills you already have developed. And that foundation is what makes the next step truly possible. I want to share this perspective from another student, Kanisha. What I love about her comment is that she saw two things happening at the same time. First, she gained access to guidance and knowledge that helped her really understand pattern making. And the second is she realized that those skills could open doors even if she decided to share her patterns later. That's something many of the students discover along the way. Some people start designing for themselves and later realize they'd love to share their work. But others only want to stay patterning for themselves and their family. Both pathways are perfectly the best way for you to go. You just have to decide which way is the best way for you. So let's take a moment and review and look back over the five shifts that we just walked through together. And I would love to know as we're going through, which one spoke most to you? Which one feels the most true of like, oh, this is speaking to me? So instead of following patterns, you are going to start reading garments. Instead of just guessing about the adjustments, you are going to start using systems. And instead of blaming fit, you are going to start diagnosing the fit to create those amazing garments. Instead of endlessly consuming tutorials, you are going to start practicing intentionally. And instead of seeing yourself as only a sewist, you're going to start stepping into the role of pattern maker. And that is a beautiful thing. Many of you have already started this journey by attending this summit that happened this past week. Now, let me ask you something. Can you see yourself and can you see how these shifts can begin to change the way you approach every garment you sew and start to pattern? Because once you start reading garments, using the systems and diagnosing the fit and practicing intentionally, sewing stops feeling like following instructions and it's going to start like feeling like creating with understanding and probably a lot of excitement because of the ideas you have in your head. And if that idea feels exciting to you, if you want to see how these shifts would change your sewing experience, give me a yes. Awesome. I see quite a few coming in about the shifts that talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing those. I love that. Yes, I love we have some pattern makers here as well. So that is why I like to say the moment you begin questioning patterns instead of just following them, you are already stepping into pattern making. Now, we've talked about the five shifts, moving from following instructions to truly reading the garments and diagnosing fit. But I want to share a secret about this journey. Pattern making is not to be done in isolation. Think about the most successful designers in history. They didn't work in a vacuum. They worked in studios surrounding by other people's eyes, other people's hands, other people's perspectives. When you try to master pattern drafting or even digital drafting, complex fit issues by yourself, or even small hurdles. Like those little tiny problems can feel like a brick wall when you're staring at a problem for too long and you can't see a way out. But when you are in a shared space, a community with like-minded people, everything changes. You can stop guessing instead of staring at those drag lines for 3 hours and having no idea what to do with them. You have a community that can help you see the why or give you ideas of how to change it or how to fix it instantly. You will be learning faster because you don't have to just learn from your own muslins and your own mistakes. You'll be learning from everybody else's and say, oh, I wanted to learn that, but I hadn't gotten to that yet. And you had some questions answered before you even started. You will stay inspired. There's always something truly priceless about being in a room with people who actually speak the same language, get really excited about the same things. You get to see different amazing things that they're creating as well. So, designing for yourself is one of the most meaningful things you can do with pattern making. And it's so much fun, but it can be a lot more fun and sometimes more successful when you have that creative sounding board to back you up, support you, and when you're feeling down, help pick you back up. So, with that in mind, would you like to learn the support system on how to actually put these systems into practice? Learning how to truly understand patterns, draft digitally with confidence, and improve fit instead of guessing, and create designs that are completely your own. Because the truth is, there are really two ways people can approach learning pattern making. The first option is the path most sewists try. You search for tutorials online, you try techniques, you find outlines, you experiment through trial and error with fitting, and sometimes you redraft patterns over and over and over again, trying to get the result you want. And honestly, this is how many of us started. But it can also feel slow and confusing, frustrating, because you're trying to piece everything together on your own. So the second option looks a little different. The second option is following a clear path, and it's a supported path. Instead of guessing, you're going to be learning a structured drafting system. Instead of wondering how patterns work, you're going to understand how the structure behind them. Instead of getting stuck alone, you're going to have guidance and a community within that to help support you. And instead of trying to learn everything through random tutorials, you're going to be building skills step by step. You're not learning techniques. You're going to learn how patterns work so that you can create your own amazing patterns you can wear and share. So I want to introduce you to my signature program, the Digital Pattern Drafting Academy. This program teaches you how to design, draft, fit, grade, and package patterns all digitally. You can see how simple it can be to turn your ideas into professional patterns that fit accurately and look as good as they feel. Now, we are going to talk about how you can stop wasting weeks making endless muslins, and instead, I'll show you how to use a digital fitting tools to test proportions, balance, ease, so that you can make smarter adjustments in hours instead of days. And then I do still believe in making muslin mock-ups. Digital drafting and digital fitting are wonderful tools. However, they are not the end-all be-all, and it's not going to replace your craftsmanship, and it's not going to replace at least one fitting. But they is going to help you make those fittings more intentional. Your digital fit gives you that clarity, and your muslin will confirm it. So when you cut your final fabric, you will already know what is going to work. You'll also see how to package your hard work like a professional designer. If you are ever interested in selling your patterns, starting digitally is the easiest way to then continue creating your whole package. And by the end of the program, you'll know exactly what goes into a polished sewing packet that's ready to sell and how to make your patterns stand out online. Now imagine opening pattern making on your computer. Maybe that's in Clo 3D, maybe it's in Illustrator, Affinity Designer. And instead of staring at a blank screen, you're going to wondering where you want to even start, you will know what to do. You will understand how to build your sloper and how to fit your sloper. You will understand how to analyze a garment and then turn that sloper into your new pattern pieces. And you know how to move confidently through the tools to create what you are imagining. That's exactly the transformation the Digital Pattern Drafting Academy is designed to help you achieve. So pattern making is not random, whether it's digital or whether it's by hand. It is a system. And inside the academy, everything is organized under four core pillars. These are the four skills that turn someone who loves sewing into somebody who can create patterns. The first pillar is the digital pattern foundations. This is where you're going to learn to work with the tools, the workflows, so that you can confidently work inside the softwares like Clo, Adobe Illustrator, or Affinity Designer. The second pillar is something that I like seeing or something I call seeing like a pattern maker. This is where we're going to go deep into the design analysis. We're going to learn how you look at a garment and understand how it was constructed and how you can then deconstruct it to help you create the patterns. The third pillar is drafting with intention. This is where you're going to draft your slopers. You're going to start uh, doing a step-by-step, drafting those slopers, printing them off, fitting them, and then going to make all those alterations on the computer so that you have this amazing fitting garment that you can transform into any design that you wish. Then the fourth pillar is that professional pattern finalization. This is where we refine, we test, we polish your patterns so they're usable professionally and also for yourself. You want to make sure you have your grain lines on there, your notches. You want them organized nicely so it's easy to cut. All those things you want to think about while you are creating your patterns. And of course, if your goal is to eventually sell patterns, there is a section dedicated to grading, sewing packets, and preparing those patterns for customers. Pattern making will stop feeling mysterious when you start to understand and you have a system to follow. One of the biggest reasons my students get results is because they're not doing this alone. Every month, you get multiple live calls to keep you learning, creating, and feel supported. We have weekly implementation hours where you can share your screen, you can ask questions, and get help while you work with what you are working on. We also have monthly patterning parties that these are creative system or sessions where we draft together. We pick out a image that we're all wanting to draft, and then we will design analysis it, and then we will step by step walk through the tools on how you take that from sloper to finished pattern. You also get monthly trainings where we're going to dive into different advanced techniques, sometimes new tools. I also bring in some guest experts so that you can learn from other people who have different knowledge than I do. And to keep you on track, we also have bi-weekly accountability calls because progress happens faster when you have structure, support, and somebody to sometimes give you a kick in the butt when you're not staying on track with what you say you want to do. One thing I know about learning anything is sometimes when you get stuck, it's nice to have somebody there to help you. So maybe you're working in Clo 3D and can't remember where a tool is, or you're trying to rotate a dart in Illustrator and the pattern isn't quite behaving the way you want it to. Inside the Academy, you will be able to access custom making pattern or custom pattern making assistants that are designed for each one of these programs. They can help walk you step by step through tasks, troubleshooting common issues, and help you move forward when you're working independently. You can ask them questions and they will feed back answers and different ways to achieve what you are looking for. So even when you are practicing on your own, you won't feel stuck. You'll have somebody to ask a question for, and hopefully they will be able to help you. So you are one step away from transforming your pattern making journey. So here again is everything you're going to get today when you join today. The full course, learning everything from mastering digital tools to creating professional patterns and all the different step-by-steps in between. And you never have to learn alone. You get the weekly implementation hours, the bi-weekly accountability, the monthly patterning parties and trainings, and you get access to support when you need it inside of the community. So if you ever gotten stuck in the past, this support is what's going to help keep you moving forward. And of course, then we have some bonuses. When you enroll, you will also receive these incredible bonus because I believe in your creativity and I want you to see how far you can take it. So I've added some very special bonuses. These are tools that can help you stay organized, show up like a professional brand, and get your patterns in front of customers if you are looking to sell your patterns. So instead of sitting on unfinished ideas, you're going to be creating the patterns you love, being able to wear your clothes with confidence. So I'm so excited to share this next one because for those of you who are ready to take action and commit to transforming your pattern making journey, I've got a fast action bonus for you that I don't want you to miss. If you sign up for in the next 36 hours, so by tomorrow evening, Friday night, you will have a free one-on-one hour coaching session with me. That's a $100 value at no additional cost. This is your chance to get one-on-one help, personalized support from me, whether you want help setting something up at the beginning, you want help halfway through, troubleshooting a specific project, diving deeper into a concept from the course, or strategizing something about a pattern you are working on. These sessions are completely tailored to your needs and what you want to create. Here's the catch though. This bonus is only available during the first 36 hours. And once the first 36 hours is up, then this part of the bonus is gone. You'll still get everything else, but the bonus will be gone. I do have people sometimes ask me, why do I do this? And it's because I want to reward the people who are ready to take that first step right now. And I know life can get in the way, and I don't want you to miss an opportunity to change the way you can learn, or change the opportunity to learn digital pattern drafting for you. So before we talk about the investment, I do want to pause for just a moment and look at everything that you are going to get inside of the academy. Because really, this isn't just a course where you're going to watch a few videos and then try to figure everything out on your own. You are going to get curriculum that walks you through digital pattern making step by step. You're going to get access to multiple softwares, workflows, so that you can work in the program that fits. You're learning how to analyze garments, draft your own patterns, refine them, and turn them into professional designs. And you're not going to be doing it alone. You'll have weekly implementation hours, patterning parties, monthly trainings, accountability calls, and of course, access to a community of like-minded people who are all learning pattern making uh, at the same time. Plus, the resources, the workbooks, and pattern making assistance that will help you when you are working independently. When we look at everything that is included, the value of the Academy is well over $5,000. But the investment to join today is going to be much simpler than that. The regular price to join the Digital Pattern Drafting Academy is $2,497 when paid in full. Or you can do 6 monthly payments of $447. This program includes everything you need to confidently design, draft, fit, grade, and package your own sewing patterns with support and guidance every step of the way. But because you joined the summit and because you're here with me today and you've taken the steps towards learning a better, more creative way to draft patterns, I want to give you a special workshop pricing. The 6 monthly payments will go down to $347, or you can pay in full with $1,997. This is my way of making your next step into the digital pattern drafting feel more accessible. You will have the tools, you will have the structure, and you will have the community walking beside you as you grow your skills. And I want to remind all of my VIP members that you get an additional discount. You have an additional coupon in your bonus area to get an extra $147 off the price of the VIP ticket. So when you are looking at everything included, you are getting, oh, currency. It is in US dollar currency. When you are looking at everything included, you're getting a full digital pattern drafting system, step-by-step trainings, ongoing support, the tools to help you move forward without guessing. This is designed to take you from following patterns to confidently creating your own. And here's why I feel my program is truly different from anything else out there. I built this for Sewist. You don't need a huge tech background to succeed here. I teach the softwares and I try to teach them in ways that help you understand and that you can start using it fast. I also don't rely only on digital tools. Learning digital tools is really great and they have a lot of amazing tools out there. However, I still highly encourage everybody to still use real world muslins before finalizing your patterns, especially if you're wanting to sell your patterns. You want to make sure you're creating good quality patterns that people will want to come back and continue to buy. The third is it isn't just a collection of tutorials. It is a system that will help you take from creating your first pattern, whether that is altered from a sloper that's already there, or drafting your own sloper, to a polished final pattern that you can confidently share. And then you are never alone. You have those weekly office hour calls, you have the patterning parties, and then you have the community to all help work alongside you to see everything. And finally, this program helps you grow as a pattern maker. By the time you're done, you will be confident in your workflow, proud of your work, and ready to create digital patterns that truly represent your creativity. Oh, That started really fast. So I'm going to go back for a second. I have a few students here that I want you to hear from so that you can hear what they have to say about.
Definitely worth the investment. um,
And it is stopping on me. That's interesting. That's fun. It hasn't done that before. Um, we're going to see if I can find that uh, somewhere else. Hold on one second. Gotta love technical difficulties. Let's see here. Well, I can also put these. Are you gonna play the whole thing if I do?
I will say that
Nope, you're still not gonna let it play the whole thing. I don't know why. We're going to find it a different way.
definitely worth the investment. I will say that it saved me a lot of time just because before I was working on Skillshare, looking for courses, and like I had to spend time picking out classes that I would want, and a lot of those are very basic and not they don't actually answer specifically what the questions I have. So I think this course also allowed me to have like a roadmap to follow because if I didn't really have a roadmap, I'm like, okay, let's just learn how to make a block for myself, I guess. But it's like with this course, I was able to like, okay, go through the course, like make my own blocks. Okay, now test it out on other designs that I can create in my head or whatever, or find online, right? And again, I think that it saved me so much time in like, okay, I don't know what next, or like hesitating instead of jumping in, getting it done. Let's just do it, right? So I think the mentality helped me with my change my mentality of like, all right, just do it, and also giving me that roadmap. Oh, I really, to be completely honest, I didn't know what to expect. I kind of thought, maybe we would do, maybe to be honest, I thought it was gonna kind of be structured as like every other class, kind of like, oh, here's some self-paced modules, and we'll chat on social media once a month or something. I thought it was gonna be a little bit more kind of structured the way all of them are nowadays. And it was really a breath of fresh air to like get on and see. So I mean, yes, you have those like self-paced modules that you can, and not only are there some of them, but there's tons of modules that you can go through at your own pace. But then not only that, but we have the accountability, we have the patterning parties, and then of course we have the office hours where we get on our implementation hours, where it's like no matter what I'm working on, you will pivot and answer any questions. So no matter where each of us are at, you will stop and you can address any questions. And I think ultimately it's kind of funny, but I feel like I've taken a lot of classes with a lot of people, but it's not every day like I feel like, okay, this person's the real deal. And that's how I feel with you. And I think that's why I absolutely love this class.
So at the end of today, there are really two paths that you can take. One path is one that many sewists stay on, and that's continue to search for tutorials, trying techniques, experimenting through trial and error. And over time, you will definitely piece things together little by little, bit by bit. But there is also another path, and that's the following a clear system that helps you understand how garments are constructed and how those patterns are created. And the difference between those two paths, is not talent. It is simply having structure and support. And the truth is, if you're here today, you've already come further along in your journey than you probably realize. One thing I've noticed after teaching Sewist is that learning pattern making digitally often feels harder than it should. And you're not alone in that. And I want you to know that you are 100% capable of learning pattern making, whether it is by hand or by digitally drafting. It's because most pattern resources sometimes teach the tools without then teaching the pattern making, or they teach the pattern making without teaching the tools. You might learn how to click the buttons, but not how the garments are actually created or why the garments are going from design to pattern and what's causing you to look at each thing. Some people learn alterations before they understand the underlying pattern structure. So adjustments start to feel random at first, but then once they start diving into pattern making more, they can start feeling more intentional and understand why you do what you are doing. And many pattern making resources are written assuming that you already have tons of formal fashion school training. And what I wanted to create with the Academy was something different, a place where sewists could learn digital pattern making in a way that makes sense for how we think and create. Because the moment you begin questioning patterns, or instead of just following them, you start, well, wondering how a garment is constructed. You might notice the seam lines, the darts, the shaping. You try to understand the fit instead of just accepting it for what it is was the moment that you started becoming a pattern maker. So you are not leaving sewing behind to do this. You are going to be building on your skills that you already have. And if you would like to have support continued in that journey, a learning system behind the pattern making and development of those skills step by step, I would love to welcome you inside the Digital Pattern Drafting Academy. So I do want to ask you a simple question. Where would you like to be 6 months from now? Still piecing together tutorials, trying techniques, and hopefully finding a fit that works, or confidently drafting patterns digitally, understanding how those garment works, and then bringing those designs to life through your digital patterns. The difference between these two outcomes is not talent. It's just having a clear system and support moving forward to get your goals achieved. One thing I want you to remember before we wrap up is learning pattern making doesn't mean leaving sewing behind. In fact, it is the opposite. You're going to be building on the skills you already have, your understanding of fabric, your understanding of construction, how the garments fit with the body and shape around the body. Those things are exactly what makes sewists such incredible pattern makers. And when you learn a system for turning those skills into patterns, you don't have to figure it out alone. I know investing in yourself can be a big decision, but if something inside says, this is exactly what I've been looking for, I want to encourage you to trust that feeling. You deserve to learn skills that will help you design with confidence, whether you're working in Clo 3D, Illustrator, or still just wanting to draft by hand. You deserve to see your ideas come to life, and you don't have to figure it out all on your own. The Digital Pattern Drafting Academy is here to support your growth, one pattern, one project, one win at a time. So if you're ready to take that next step, I would be honored to support you inside of the Academy. And I want you to imagine something for a moment. 6 months from now, you could still be wondering how digital pattern making works, still watching random tutorials and trying to piece things together. Or 6 months from now, you could be drafting your own patterns, understanding garment construction in a completely new way, and creating designs that you are super excited about and confidently get to wear. The difference between those two paths is simply deciding to start. If you feel that pull towards it, I would absolutely love you inside of the community. I am going to drop the link. Here we go. And it will be in the description below after, I will make sure it gets in the description below after the presentation. Before we wrap up, I do want to answer some questions. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and submit those. I do have a few I'm going to work through while they come in because I know sometimes it is a slower process to get those questions coming in. And if you have a question that I don't answer here, or if it's on the replay, please feel free to email me and message me on Instagram, or I'm open to also setting up a short 15-minute call where we can talk about your goals, your dreams, and see if the academy is the right fit for you or what would be the best next steps. So one question I get all the time is, what if I'm not tech savvy? And honestly, that's kind of why I created this program. It is digital drafting that is built for people who might not be the most technically savvy. You'll have to be able to open up the program, but then we're going to be walking through stuff step by step together. A lot of the patterning parties is where people will really get to know the program because we do our design analysis of the garment. And then we're going to walk through step by step. We're going to say, hey, we're going to take this tool and we're going to use this tool in this way so that you're learning the tool in a very specific way while doing a full garment design instead of just learning kind of the basic of this tool does this. But it's like, okay, but why would I use that? So it's built for specifically sewists who have that idea and want to continue their learning. Um, the next question that I get is, do I need to have chosen a software before joining? The answer is no. Inside the academy, we do have several different drafting tools include and different softwares that have a lot of the in the back office. And then we can definitely talk during an implementation hour or anything like that to see what your goals are of which tool would be the best for you to learn. And a lot of times when people are asking, I don't know which tool to use, or I don't know which I want to learn, a lot of that comes down to what do you want to do with it in the end? Um, because there are lots of different reasons why you'd pick one tool over another, but it really does come down to what do you want? What are your end goals? Are you looking to sell? Are you looking just to alter for yourself? Are you looking to do something else? And all those decisions helps will make sure you get the right tool. I've had a lot of students start with one tool and then they move to another tool as their workflow evolves and they start seeing stuff and they see opportunities with other tools. Another question I get is, how much time do I need per week? This is a hard question to answer because it is very dependent on how you want to learn and how fast you want to move through the program. We have a lot of self-paced stuff through there. I do think most of my students spend anywhere between 3 and 10 hours a week working on lessons, practicing, coming to the implementation hours, coming to the patterning parties, and everything. So it's helping you move through the program. Obviously, the more time you can commit to it, the more time you can go through the practice of it and create the things, the faster you are going to get through building your own sloper, building your own muslin, fitting it, and working through it there. However, you can still get through the program with less time. And sometimes it's nice to be, even if you don't have questions, just coming to the implementation and saying, this hour I'm going to sit and I'm going to work on this class. I'm going to continue working, and it's just a time blocked space out so that you can continue your learning every week. Um, how long does it take to complete the academy? So I do this in a 6-month program because I want to make sure you guys do have plenty of time. And again, that comes down to the time a little bit. How much time are you willing to put to the program to really be learning everything and growing and doing? Um, but I mean, when I first had other renditions of this, I had a much shorter time frame, and I realized it was not long enough. So we do have a 6-month first enrollment, and then we have a thing if you want to stay in the community and everything, you can stay in the community after, and we talk about that after the 6 months. How do you get a figure into Clo? Can you import a 3D image of your own body? Yes, you can. we do have a training with this on how you can scan your own body and put it into Clo 3D yourself. You can also manipulate the Clo 3D body figures to be very similar to your body by just kind of clicking around and changing their sizes, their heights, and everything. But yes, you can get a 3D image scan. I walk you through how you do that in one of our monthly trainings that you will have access to. You have to do a very specific type of scan, and then we kind of go through and how you fix that scan to make it right. There are different businesses out there I know that will do the same thing for you. And if you want a perfectly scanned um, image of yourself or of that, you can work with somebody else who will get you like that perfect thing. But I do have the access to how you do it. In which currency it is in USD. How big is the community? I do try to keep the community small. I am only opening 20 spots this round, so that I can make sure that I still give you guys a high touch enrollment. I want to make sure that the communities do stay a little bit smaller because I like to make sure that you guys get the one-on-one attention that you need, that you have when you come to office hours, you can get your questions answered. That when we're working through a patterning party, if your screen is doing something weird, it's like, okay, let's have you share your screen and let's see what it's doing so I can see what's manipulating or how we could fix it or what the problem is. So I do like to keep the community small so that you guys get that attention that you need. Is the pattern alterations course also included? Yes, that is part of the back office. I don't normally sell that. I did give that to our VIPs for free this year, if you upgraded to the VIP bonus. But yes, that is one of the courses that is in that back office that you can access as well as other bits and pieces. I already have patterns in Illustrator, but I would like to know how to use Clo 3D and Affinity. Well, Affinity is very similar to Illustrator. There are some differences in tools and how layouts work out and everything. But Clo 3D is vastly different. Another thing that I would also like to say, if you're unsure about Clo 3D, they do have a 2 week trial and error. Free trial. There it is. They do have a 2 week free trial where you can really dive into it and see if you like it. If you come into the course, you get my Clo 3D Quick Start course for free as part of the main Digital Pattern Drafting Academy. And right now with the summit, I do have a 30% off my Clo 3D Quick Start, but it is a Quick Start course that pairs with that 2 week trial. So it's 14 lessons. Actually, I think it's 15 lessons. I give you a bonus lesson um, that talks you through like, okay, let's look at Clo 3D. Let's look at how these tools work. Let's look at how you're going to make a skirt. We're going to how we're going to draft a bodice. There's lots of different things that you can do within Clo 3D. And within those 2 weeks, it can help give you a gauge of do you want to continue learning this program and paying for this program or not. And right now during the summit, I am giving a 30% off. You will find that in the goodie bag. So if you have that goodie bag, you can get a 30% off my Clo 3D Quick Start. And part of that Quick Start is for those 2 weeks, you come into our community and you're able to ask questions. You're able to come to the implementation hours to help get your questions answered while you're learning that system because it is this big system to learn, but it's there. I want to learn to use Clo 3 but or some other computer program, but I'm intimidated by computer programs. Yes, that can be a very scary thing, especially when you open it by your own lonesome self, and it's just like there is so much going on here. During the live demo this afternoon, you'll see me working in Clo 3D, and you'll just see there's tools everywhere, and they can all do different things, and they're constantly upgrading the tools. So yes, it can be very intimidating. That's why I like to say doing it with a community, doing it with somebody who can help walk you through it step by step is a very handy thing because when you're asking or if you're trying to find answers on YouTube, you're going to find somebody maybe doing something kind of close to what you're interested in or kind of doing what you need it to do. Sometimes the tools are outdated. So, you make YouTube videos that are great for the time, but 3 years later, they've updated the program and now it's in a slightly different area. It does a slightly different thing because they've updated the program. So yeah, that can be very intimidating. But What I would suggest is that you work with it within a community, whether you join the digital pattern drafting community or another community. Trying to learn those softwares with other people is a really great way to learn. Do I need a mannequin? No, you do not. Um, it's great to have one. I love having a mannequin because then you can test and try stuff on your mannequin and not yourself, but it is not necessary. Um, the times when it isn't necessary use a mannequin is when you are specifically draping in the real world. That's when you're needing a mannequin. You can drape in Clo 3D, and we do go over that a little bit, and that's also fun, but you don't necessarily need a mannequin, but it also depends on what you're looking for in the long run. Um, I think I saw one earlier up as well. See if there's any more that came in. How do you make a sloper? So there's a few different ways you can make a sloper. A lot of times there's a step-by-step drafting process to make a sloper. In the back office of the Digital Pattern Drafting Academy, I do have step-by-step projects on how to draft a sloper in Adobe Illustrator and in Clo 3D. Trying to remember if I've done it in Affinity Designer yet or not. But I do have those step-by-step worksheets that will tell you exactly how to do it digitally. If you're looking to just how do you draft a sloper, if you get a patterning book, there's lots of patterning books out there, and a lot of them have how do you draft your base sloper to start. I know Helen Joseph Armstrong, she has a really amazing book that can teach you how to draft that sloper. Uh, yeah, awesome. Does a Mackin help drafting for kids? It can because they are not, kids are very squeamish and they will not like to stand still for a fitting. Um, that's one thing that when you work with kids, you put it on and you do stuff as fast as you can and then you get it off of them because they don't like to stand still. They like to squirm and move and everything. So it can help for drafting for kids as well. What's great in Clo is they actually have avatars for from babies all the way to plus size models, and you can tweak and measure and do all the different things so you can actually fit on a kid in Clo 3D and then create it for life. Where can you find the goodie bag? The goodie bag came out. I'll make sure to post a post in the Facebook as well. I think that post came out on like Monday, but it probably got buried. So I'll definitely post about the goodie bag once we get off here so that you guys can go check out. We have some fabric deals in there. There's some fun stuff in the goodie bag, but it definitely came out in some of the emails, and then it was posted. Awesome. Well, if you have any other questions, keep having them come in. Are there specific ones for children? Are you talking to like specific avatars for children in Clo 3D? Because there are. Are you thinking like specific slopers for children? Because there is also specific slopers, because children's bodies proportions are slightly different. That you want to have you do it a little bit differently. You know, they don't have the little girls don't have the busts that women have. So there is just a little bit of difference in drafting those patterns there. Awesome. So, before we wrap up today, I want to remind you everything you've seen here is something you can learn, whether you're going to learn it with me, by yourself, or with another amazing person from the summit. Pattern making is not about talent, but definitely you can do it yourself. It's all about understanding and practicing and having the right support along the way. So, whether again you decide to join us inside the academy, or you continue to explore on your own, I hope you walk away from this summit and from everything seeing garments a little bit differently, feeling more confident about what's possible and what you can do. So here's the link for the two free gifts that I gave you. Oh, you just signed. That's not fun. Cool. Hold on. My Google just signed me out of my Google. So we are going to get me signed back in so I can get you that link. Specific for mannequins. Yes, there are specific mannequins for children. Um, they're not, you don't see them as commonly because I feel like people don't use them as often in like home sewing and everything, but there are specific mannequins for children. Free gifts. There we go. Put that in the chat there. Awesome. Like I said, if you guys have any other questions or want to talk some more about the Digital Pattern Drafting Academy and see if it is right for you, please don't hesitate to reach out via email, Instagram, Facebook. I am happy to chat with you. Make sure that you are taking the right next step for you. And remember, we also have our Pattern Makers panel later today, as well as a live demo where we're going to be doing some design analysis and then actually creating the pattern in Clo 3D. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. It was so much fun to share this morning with you, and I look forward to seeing you this afternoon and then this evening. And make sure that you are, if you are interested in the Digital Pattern Drafting Academy and want to fill out the scholarship, you still have about an hour and a half to get those scholarship applications in. I can also throw that in the chat. Scholarship. And then if you are interested, or make sure you are turning in your bingo cards so that you have a chance to win some of the fun prizes from the summit. I look forward to seeing all of you soon. Take care.